Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Robby Soave.
And I'm Amber Duke. Pod Save America host Jon Lovett became furious with a guest on his show. It was LA City Councilmember Imelda Padilla after she admitted that she had worked to thwart developers from building new housing in the city. Their interaction went viral on X, and for good reason. Let's take a look.
For the conversations that they have with folks about what they're going to do to keep their neighborhood looking and growing the way that they want it to be. So, for example, for the state to say, here's your opportunity to build something that is potentially 7 stories high, when nothing around it is 7 stories because the state allows it, it's almost an insult to everyone who voted for the individual who they believe is going to help grow and clean and maintain their communities as they would like them to be.
But see, that to me gets at the core of the issue. And first of all, I just want to say, I appreciate you coming on here because I am out there in favor of SB 79. You're on with the proponent of the bill. So I appreciate you coming and being willing to have this debate. And I really want to be fair to your point of view. But what I hear there is what you're saying is, well, there weren't 7-story buildings here in the past, so there can't be 7-story buildings here in the future. But that freezes California in a moment when there were far fewer people in this state. And my concern in what I'm hearing from you is there are legitimate issues that you're raising about what locals feel about the character of their neighborhood. I'm not saying that those aren't legitimate concerns, but it seems to lose the forest for the trees, which is we have an emergency. There's only a quarter, 20% of the number of affordable units as the number of people who need them. We are losing people to Texas. Right? They are making a claim that we are failing in California to build enough. Like, this is an emergency. The problem isn't that there are going to be buildings too high near transit stops. The problem is there is nowhere for people who want to come to California to live.
We talked about this clip on Rising today as well, me and Niall, but I also wanted to talk about it with you. I am totally here for Jon Lovett's righteous indignation on this. So this was a discussion of a bill that failed, as she voted against, and enough of the city council voted against, that would have given some powers to make it easier for development to happen. And you hear her describing her position, which is what, 7-story building? That's insane. We're in a 7-story building right now. It's not, you don't feel like you're on a skyscraper near the moon in a 7-story building. And
DC has height limits on buildings. So like it
makes it a lot more expensive to live here.
Yeah, it does. But so we actually have some of the regulations that keep the character of the city intact, while also allowing at least some semblance of increasing housing supply. I mean, California has just done the worst of both worlds, and she's bragging earlier in the clip about getting the 7-story project down to, I think it was 3 stories, while also forcing the developer to put in EV chargers. It's like, woman, are you insane? Like, she's happy about this.
Yeah, it's crazy. And look, I don't know, maybe EV chargers will be a bigger part of the car market in the future. It'll be important to have them. I wouldn't veto every single concern a neighborhood or whatever would have versus a developer. Fine, these are conversations that need to take place. But the problem is it's way too easy to kill a project, particularly in California, but everywhere. Really bad in California. And if you do that, if you have so many veto points, you just don't build enough stuff. Right. And they're clearly having that problem. And she almost took a pride in having constrained the growth of this building. Again, at the end of the day, this is something somebody wants to do with their own property. They want to turn their property into this, just like Christian Brischke at Reason wrote about, like this restaurant owner who wanted to sell his restaurant. They're going to turn it into an apartment complex, and like that's his livelihood. That's his retirement. He doesn't want to own a restaurant anymore. And the neighbors get to say no. They said because it's a historical landmark. It's a frickin' diner. It's not a historical landmark. It's that, or it's building height, casting a shadow on my beloved porch, and that should be a veto. If all of these things are vetoes, you're not going to build anything. It's just. I was telling Niall this on Rising today. I ran into this in Ann Arbor, where I went to school, University of Michigan. I remember listening to city council members, because I was on the board of the Michigan Daily, the student newspaper, listening to the city council members talk about preventing development. This radically progressive city with like far left Democrats, most of the entire city council and most people who live there all would describe themselves as far left progressive radical people, with the most conservative of sensibilities about how the neighborhood could never change, which just doesn't make any sense to me, and is gonna kill us. And I like pretty buildings too. I know you do.
I do. I love that.
I like pretty buildings. I think you can have a mix of new and old, and that's fine. It's, some things you want to just utterly preserve the character of. But at the end of the day, we gotta make more room. Or else it's gonna be way too expensive. It's getting way too expensive. It's so expensive in this city because we're constrained by these height caps.
We can also deport all the illegals. Just saying.
Well, then who's going to build the houses, Amber?
Oh,
who's going to do
I know.
the
Who's
construction
gonna do
project?
ours?
You?
Maybe, I don't know.
We're going to put a gun to your head and make you, and then we'll see.
But look, I agree. There needs to be a balance. I'm obviously a huge fan of preserving characters of neighborhoods. I love beautiful buildings. I'm also a big fan of green space. And we had this fight actually in my neighborhood. So our neighborhood is surrounded by Fairfax County parkland, except for this one strip basically on the public thoroughfare into our cul-de-sac, which was owned by a private individual who then sold it to a developer. And this will probably come as no surprise to you. I sit on the board of my HOA, and it's not because I love HOAs, but it's because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So I like to play a part in trying to prevent the worst excesses of the HOA. But there was a lot of debate over, well, how do we stop this from being developed in the first place? And it's like, well, you can't. We don't own it, right? Like, unless we want to pull together our money and buy the piece of property and have it be trees forever.
Which you can do.
Right. Then that woman gets to sell it and she gets to make her retirement and the developer gets to put up these houses. And guess what? I mean, at the same time, your property values are going to go up. So is it ideal that you're losing your beautiful trees? Like, no, I want the trees to be there too. Right. But we're talking about a townhome community where most people are probably going to live there 5 to 10 years, it's probably in your best interest to have the $1 million homes come in on the wooded lot and increase your property values. And in the meantime, we got a nice payout for them tapping into our sewer lines. So we were allowed to not raise assessments for another year. So all of that being said, these are very complicated questions. Yeah. And the idea that you just want to insert your progressive wish list onto any new housing project is just a not serious way to deal with the housing supply issue that we have in this country.
I didn't like when I lived in an apartment building here in DC I had a balcony with a great view, and it was like the day after we moved in, they immediately started, building a building next door. It was going to finish off the U that formed the courtyard. So then there was loud construction outside, and eventually they built the building up, and I had no sunlight anymore, and that sucked.
And I bet you moved.
And I moved.
And you moved, yeah.
Sorry if it's not your property and that's not your property. On one hand, that's the resort you have to take.
And
Sorry.
we deliberately purchased our home because the backyard is county park land, so we knew that they couldn't build something directly behind our house.
Those things in. Yeah, the apartment building I live in now, one of the selling points was it does look out on a relatively open area that I know is federal property, and they're not going to be building on it anytime soon. But if they did, I would move, and that's how it goes.
I assume that I'm just going to keep going further south until maybe by retirement I'll be in South Carolina. I started in Frederick, Maryland, then I was in DC, then I was in Arlington.
Go south, young woman.
Now I'm in South Fairfax County. It's just I'm inching my way along to get further and further away from people. As
I age and I get more interested in things like grilling and having a minimum backyard space, I do start to think Arlington doesn't look so bad to me anymore. I used to think, oh my God, that'd be 1,000 million miles away from work. How would I drunkenly stumble home from the bar?
You're just living near Clarendon, and then you can drunkenly stumble home from Don Tito's.
Yeah, me and Natalie will be doing that off camera. All right, we'll see you next week on Free Media. Thanks so much for watching, and please keep leaving us comments and friendly messages or hate or threats or whatever you feel inclined to do. See you later.